Well, with all the changes brought on by the pandemic, businesses have had to adapt, and that includes a printing shop here in Huntsville. Our Sydney Stallworth spoke to them, and she has the latest.
The sign industry has been spun upside down, and here at Fast Signs in Huntsville, they tell me they've gone from making mostly promotional signs for local businesses to printing signs with a very different message, ones that help keep you safe during the pandemic.
We believe all businesses are essential, and that's why we make signs for every business.
Making signs to keep workers safe has become this company's main mission during the pandemic. Sadia Ahmed and Tanvir Zia of Fast Signs Huntsville say at first the pandemic slowed business down to levels they never expected.
Non-essential businesses had been shut down, and they comprise of about 60 to 70% of our customer base.
But then a silver lining.
As of now, we see a big trend in COVID-related signage, safety signs, things of that nature.
A big spike in temporary signage. This situation is so fluid. People don't want to be committing to a permanent sign because the rules and restrictions might change.
But posting signs that refer to COVID-19 can be tricky. Workers say they don't want to contribute to the fear that's already out there.
Colors like bright red or big X's, that's unnecessarily kind of creating a panic culture, and we as sign providers, we don't want to feed into that. We'd rather help businesses keep a calm environment.
Workers are churning these signs out as quickly as possible to keep everyone safe. Here at Fast Signs, they tell me one of their most popular products during this time, floor graphics, to help people remember to stay 6 feet apart. Putting the Valley first, Sydney Stallworth, WZDX News.